Welcome to the Sassy Girl Entrepreneur Show. I am your host, Deanna Hinsz. Today, we are going to be talking about a topic that I absolutely love. We are talking about 8 psychological tips to improve your marketing strategy. So why do I love this topic? Well, a little bit about me. My degree is actually in psych. So when my guest mentioned that this is something that they love to talk about, yes, I was all over it, totally all over it. Nice. So let me introduce you to Chris Askew. He is the founder of Tilt, which is a marketing and branding agency, and he's the host of Tag. You have your own podcast too. Chris, thank you so much. And we're friends, right? We've connected.
Right? We've met a few times.
He is a friend of mine as well. Chris, welcome to the Sassy Girl Entrepreneur Show.
Hey, thank you. I am a sassy girl, I guess, right?
You're actually the second guy I've had on my podcast, so that's kind of cool. I'm like breaking out. I mean, men have a lot to offer. It might be called the Sassy Girl Entrepreneur Show, but you can help us girls too. So
awesome.
So Chris, welcome. I know you are so passionate about digital marketing and branding and web development, right? And you coach a lot of businesses on growing their sales and marketing teams, right?
Yes.
I love what you're one of the things that your catchphrase, right? You either grow daily or die gradually.
I say that all the time. I said it on like every single episode of the podcast. It's something I've always believed in. I probably read more than most people. You know what I mean? Like, like I am addicted to books. I have, we have like a kind of whole library in our house. I'm always constantly like watching videos, reading articles, because I believe that like, man, once you stop growing, you start dying immediately. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like, you have to keep like fueling that knowledge base that you have if you want to stay relevant and continue to grow. So that's one thing that like, oh man, that's a hill that I don't mind dying on, is encouraging people to keep educating themselves and keep learning.
I agree completely. How many books do you read a month?
Probably, well, if technically not all books, like I read a ton of articles too. So probably the equivalent would be 3, like between articles and books. So
that's a lot.
Yeah.
I want to be like that. I do. Okay. One more question, right? That ties into that.
Sure.
Do you actually read the book or do you listen to the book?
No, I actually read, because I actually I take hardcore notes. And like I underline everything. Like I'm like really anal when it comes to my notes, because I even have like a little metal ruler that I use to like get like perfect lines under everything. And like,
are you kidding me?
No, I'm totally telling you honest. Like because I hate like the whole like just like I can't draw a straight line to save my life. Like if I had to be an actual artist, I would suck. You know what I mean? So like I've got to use that ruler to get those straight lines. And like, if it's not a straight edge, it bothers the crap out of me. But like I put little notes in the footer, or if there's something that I want to like add to it, like my own thoughts, because often when I'm reading something, I'm looking for content that I could be talking about,
right,
or educating others on. I'll write out like extra notes and like put it into the book as well. So that way, if I ever go back to it, like I have something to reference. That's my own spit take on what we just talked about. In the book.
You know what? I do the same thing. I have to take notes, and I rather read. Now, I will say that the best retention I did get from a book is I was reading a book, and they happened to have it on the plane when I was flying from Montana to Ohio.
Yeah.
So I listened to it from where I was at. So I'm listening and reading at the same time. And I was like, oh, wow, this was really cool. Like,
see, I've not tried that. Like really I know. Yeah, I have friends that, like you talked about Clubhouse. I have friends that use Voxer. And one of the things that like drives me nuts though, like if I had to listen to a book, I'd probably be doing what I do on YouTube and just like 1.25, 1.5. You know what I mean? Like listen to it faster. But then that also screws up your retention. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'll have to try that sometime.
Well, I think that moment was pretty cool, right? But I agree. I feel like listening to the book is cheating. And I know right now, if anybody's listening and they read the book, I'm probably going to get like hate mail or something going, no, it's not. No, it's not. But I do. I feel like listening is cheating. And reading is so much more. But I get that people learn differently. I totally get it. So you can listen to your book and I'll keep reading mine.
Right. Yeah.
I guess there's different options for different people. So we're all
Well,
okay.
How do you take notes when you're listening? You know what I mean? Like, that's my take. Like, if I'm going to really learn and like absorb what I'm getting, you know what I mean? Like, I have to take notes. Like, I'm a note taker. So, yeah. I mean, like, to each their own. Like, hey, if you can remember all that jazz to use for later,
yeah,
good on you, kid, because I can't do that.
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Same here. So let's talk about these 8 psychological tips. I am so excited to talk about this. Like, I can't even stand it. So if you are listening or watching this, go get your notebook because you're going to want to take notes too on what Chris has to share with us. And hopefully it's starting to storm here. So hopefully we continue through this. Yeah. I've heard Florida, when there's lightning, like it's common for things to blow up. So if I go black, just say some prayers. Like I don't lose my computer or anything.
Dude, girl, I could have sworn you moved to Montana.
I'm in Florida now.
Okay.
We went from
world traveler
from Ohio to Montana, and I now live in Florida.
Nice. All right. Hey.
Keep up.
Right?
Who knows what I'll be tomorrow? I mean,
right? All right. So in college, like, I don't want to crap talk on YSU, but like back in the day, like I don't feel like it was a great school for graphic design. And that was what I originally went for. All right.
Okay.
So I actually feel like I got far more out of my psychology classes than I did, any of my design courses or even any of my business classes. And I truly think, Deanna, I really believe that you have to have a really solid understanding and a fundamental knowledge of how people think and behave if you're going to become a great marketer at what you're doing. You mean like it's going to be a really rough road if you don't understand basic psychological principles. Now, a lot of people absorb these by just, like experiencing them in life, but not really knowing like what the principles are behind the scenes that are actually affecting and driving that.
Right.
But like for me, I know some of the best marketing books that I've read were not in the marketing section of Barnes & Noble. It was in the psychology section. So like, if you as marketers are looking at a way to grow and expand how good you are at strategy, I promise you, the best starting point you could possibly get is understanding psychology.
I agree.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that once you understand human behavior, you can really, and this is going to sound horrible, but use this power for good. You can really manipulate people. You know what I mean? Like it's unfortunately, it's easy to do. And that's why there's so many cults. You know what I'm saying? Just breaking it real. You know what I mean? Like there's
truth to that. Yeah.
There's an evil side to it. I urge you not to use it for evil. You know what I mean? Like, but there's a good side because, if you believe in the business that you're working for, the product and service that you're selling, yes, you're using psychological tactics to manipulate somebody's emotions, but at the end of the day, you're doing it for greater good. Because if you're actually providing benefit, a real true benefit. Now, if you're just a slimeball customer who's looking to make bank, or a slimeball business looking to make bank, turn off this podcast and listen to this. Listen to another one of Deanna's. Don't listen to this guy, okay? Like go back to the Real and like listen to him, all right? So, but if you're an honest person, you truly believe in what you're doing is benefiting others, psychological tactics will increase your business, it will increase your bottom line, it will increase your customer retention, and it will increase your ability to connect with your customer long term, which those are all
that's exactly what you want to do.
That's exactly what you want to do as a business owner. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So, what's really crazy is like, you notice too, there's certain psychological patterns that stores start to do when you really kind of, and psychologists have actually studied this. They look at places like Target, like Walmart, Dick's Sporting Goods, etc. Have you ever noticed, Deanna, that in most stores, you enter in the building on the left-hand side and have to take a right?
I did not, but I'm thinking of Target. I'm thinking of the stores. Yeah.
So this is a common psychological principle. Most people are inclined to turn right when they first enter into a room because most people are right-handed. So it's one of those subconscious things. This isn't even in my notes. All right. This is just like something that like, overall. Yeah. And like building designers know this, it's foot traffic. It's how people naturally behave. Now, this is also why on the outskirts of like grocery stores, they put all the expensive things, okay? Because people will end up starting going through the aisles, but it will force them. Like the reason why the milk is always in the back, the meat is always in the back at a grocery store is they want you to walk through everything and see everything else first. So like every year, using Target again, all of their sales, when they do sales, because everybody wants to go to Target to find out some good crap for cheap.
Love Target.
They run incredible clearances sometimes, all right? But all their clearance stuff is always in the back right corner of the store. So they force you to enter on the front left, and you literally have to walk the entire store to get to like when they put Reese's Cups on February 15th on sale. You know what I mean?
Right,
like,
right.
They have all this leftover chocolate. It's always in the back right of the store. And that is done because of a psychological principle. You know, it's because people will naturally turn left or naturally turn right. And then they also want you to walk through everything so that you see other stuff to spend more time there, which the more time you're spending on something, the more you're going to spend. So it's because you're gaining familiarity with it. And we'll kind of get into a little bit of that. But
that's kind of cool. So if you've got a storefront, right, you want to put the most common product towards the back and the right, and the expensive stuff and the along the way.
Well, even if you have a small storefront, okay, like let's say you're a mom and pop, all right, and you got a little Main Street store. So when people enter in, you don't want to place your high value goods that you want people to buy on the left wall when they first walk in. You want to play your high value goods and any like pop signage that you have, put up point of purchase signage or things encouraging people to purchase. You want to put that on the right side as people are walking in the building, because predominantly like the statistic is crazy high. It's like over 90% of people look right and turn right as they enter into a room.
Yeah.
So
I'm totally guilty of that. I'm replaying a ton of scenes in my head right now. Yep. I'm guilty.
Yep. And then here's the other thing, like human beings, like we have our mind, it's like that whole lizard brain. We are prone to impulsivity. It is what it is.
Right.
So, and it's something that if you're not an impulsive shopper, you have trained yourself to be that way. You mean, because like, I know that I used to be when I was younger, but like now it's like I've trained myself to say, hey, like if I really want this object, I put money in an envelope and like literally wait 2 weeks before I purchase it.
Right.
You know, so like that way it kind of drives you to really think like, is this really something I really technically need? Because your brain, it really is wired for that impulsive decision. So regardless of demographics, people make impulse purchases. There's some studies done by like Chase, by Gallup that I can send over to you if you want those in the show notes. But, you know, this is why when you're shopping on stuff, like you'll see try it now, buy now, get it now. Or if you're registering for an event like this. Now, this is one thing that I kind of hate. Like they'll put limited or, you know, there's reserve your seat now before it goes when really they're probably not going to go. Or if you've ever seen like that countdown timer that's going on like a landing page when you're going to purchase something, all of that is pushing you to purchase something because of our human brain is prone to that impulsivity.
Have you ever watched the clock and sat and debated, do I need it? Do I need it? Do I need it before it runs out and then hit yes? Or is that only me?
Yeah. And I think what's also kind of awesome, and this is where it gets tricky, the more you understand psychology, the more you can see through the bullshit.
That's
you know
true.
What I mean? So like, hey,
so are you saying you've never fell victim of that tactic?
Oh, I've fallen victim to it for sure. Yeah.
Because I get it too, but I'm like, sometimes I'm like, oh, well, I was gonna get it anyhow. So
well, you know who does this really, really well? And it drives me absolutely nuts. All of the different like Expedient and whatever that you're getting plane tickets from.
Yep.
And it's always like, this is going blah, blah, blah. Like this hotel room is gonna be booked if you don't. But here's the thing, like all of that is a freaking lie. So what's really crazy is a lot of those same companies purchase through the same supplier behind the scenes. So they all have the same amount of inventory, okay? So what's crazy too is knowing web development, they track everything that you're doing via cookies. So if you are shopping for a plane ticket to Hawaii for a vacation, you're going to see the lowest prices first because people want it's that impulsive purchase. And
Right.
if you don't purchase it and you come back, and if you haven't flushed your cash on your browser, the price of that ticket goes up automatically, just because it's your second visit to the site.
And they know, because they are tracking your IP.
Yes. So now that comes back to psychology again, because now you're having an oh crap moment that says, if I don't purchase this now, how much higher is it going to get?
It's going to go up again. Yeah.
They're playing your mind because of psychology right there. Boom. That's how they've done it. So that's part of the sleazy side of what you can do to manipulate people to purchase.
Yeah. So
just be aware of like, these are the things that people do to make you purchase.
Right. So, and it works.
Yeah, it totally works. Yeah. And that's why, like, hey, like if somebody is shopping for, any kind of vacation, I always urge you, like, get a VPN. You may log in differently every single time, use different emails if you can. And I promise you're going to be paying less for your vacation. All right. So the next one up is psychology of color. Color's amazing.
I love that topic. That's one of my favorite topics.
And like, we can kind of deep dive into this for sure, but there's a reason why so many business websites use blue. You mean because that blue is supposed to invoke trust. It's supposed to invoke like you're able to depend on them. It's reliability. It's calming. You know what I mean? Like, it's a calming color because they want you to be able to continue to be their customer. Like, it's not energetic. You don't feel like you're taking a risk like you would be with like orange, yellow.
It would be red for a bank.
Yeah, exactly. So, our brains are naturally wired to associate colors with different emotions that we have.
Yeah.
So, like, understand, like, this is a shorter show, so I'm not going to deep dive into that. But it's amazing.
But we totally can. I know we can.
It's amazing how much, though, like that the color like affects how you purchase. So when you're designing something, business owner, understand, like, if you're going to get something done for part of your brand strategy, color has to be a part of it. Color has to be a very important part of it. And it's more than just, hey, I like the color green. You have to know what those colors kind of invoke. But here's the other kind of cool thing too, is you have to know what those colors invoke in the cultures that you're selling to.
That's a really good point.
Yes. Because
that's a very good point. That's something I do talk about color psychology a lot, but I have not spoken about that. But so what colors represent something different in a different culture?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
Okay, I was like, have you come across that? Because I haven't. I'm not trying to throw you under the bus, but I'm like, I'm curious. Now I'm going to be doing some research and see.
I have an article somewhere. Like, I'll have to find it, and like we could post it in the notes. That's totally cool. But like, I know that I've read that there's certain cultures that are like, hey, this is why you see this more in used in Africa versus in Egypt. You know what I mean? Like it's that whole. China, perfect example is China, like reds and golds, like these are important colors to them.
Right.
To us, it's not necessarily, you know what I mean? It doesn't have the same cultural importance as it does in China, but reds and golds are, symbolism of luck and fortune. You mean, whereas in America, like the reds, or passion.
Oh, that's true.
Which could also be dangerous.
It could, yes.
Yeah. But yellow does typically danger. You know what I mean? Like, that's why, like, all of your warning labels are usually in yellow for chemicals.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yellow is usually energetic. Like, that's like a energetic color that we associate with. So, but if you had the same branding used in China, it's not going to read that way. So often you'll find large agencies that do global work do color shifting, and they do change out words and in imagery often based off of what country and culture they're in, because what you're saying in America doesn't always translate. A really cool example of this is Gerber baby food. So Gerber baby food launched in, I want to say, like, it was either Ethiopia or Zambia. It was definitely an African country. I don't remember what exactly, so don't pin me on that. But
I won't.
so in their culture, what's on the label is what's in the can. All right. So what do you put on a baby food label? What's usually on the baby food label is babies. So yeah. Nobody was purchasing Gerber baby products when they started importing them.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because
they thought it was children.
They were like, what the hell? They wouldn't purchase it. So that's why it's incredibly important to know the culture.
Yes.
And
great example.
Right?
I'll never look at baby food again the same.
Yeah, no. What's in this can? Nice.
But and dog food too, right? Everything.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So also the brain is more likely to trust when it associates the product or website with certain words. So, and that's also why it's incredibly important to make sure that you are doing proper wordsmithing and like, you know, the tone of what you're doing, and you're able to keep a conversational dialogue on what you're writing, and that you're not writing over people's heads. You know, one thing that I tell people all the time, you know, because writing can be tricky, especially like we work with a lot of business to business brands. All right. So in that business to business world, God bless, so many times you run into, you know, hey, we're doing manufacturing and we have to push out statistics and this is what this does. And yes, that's important, but that's not what sells your product.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, people don't care about the features. People want to know what it does for them. Mm-hmm. But not only that, like typically in a B2B environment, it's really easy to get caught in that trap of we're writing over the heads of people because we have a lot of insider speak, a lot of technical verbiage that we think other engineers that we're selling to also speak. But what really happens though is you're fluffing up your content to a point where it's not approachable anymore. So, you know, make sure that when you're writing to somebody. You know, we always try to say, like, if a fourth grader can't understand it, your copy's wrong.
Right.
You know what I mean? And yeah, you have to get
before.
Yeah. And yeah, you got to get into, you know, some technical issues with some of your stuff. I get it, especially if you're B2B, but, you know, generally speaking, your product descriptions should be simple and they should be plain. You should use words that inspire and invoke trust. You know, like things like, this is authentic, it's certified, we guarantee you this. We have other loyal customers that believe this about us. You know, there's your verbiage is incredibly important for how you're going to be perceived with your trust. And
that really depends on who your audience is as well.
Yes.
And I know when I work with a lot of my clients, more on the coaching end, and we're just talking about creating content for their website, right? And before we even get to that point, we're talking about who's their niche, who's their target audience. Yeah. And I make them get really specific, uncomfortably specific, right? They're afraid to go there. But it's so important because then you know how to speak to them. When you know everything, and it's not just like what's your target, right? Man or woman, this age, this whatever, this area. No, it's like, what are their hobbies? What do they like to do? What do they do on the weekend? You know, do they have a dog? Do they have a cat? You know, or do they play tennis? Like, tell me, what are they like? And, but then you know that tone. And it's even like someone who has a coffee shop, actually, they said, well, no, I sell coffee. I can sell to anybody. And I'm like, well, you can, but let's face it. The person who walks into a coffee shop is different than the person who's running through the drive-thru at McDonald's grabbing a coffee.
Well, not just that. I mean, even if you talk about like higher end coffees, you know, like in our specific area in Youngstown, we have Stone Fruit. We have Starbucks. We have Branch Street. Exactly. Lives. Yeah. Yes.
We have a lot of homegrown coffee shops.
But they're all very different vibes when you're going into like Caribou. You know what I mean? Like you have, I miss Caribou.
I do too. Yeah. I do too.
That was my jam, girl. That was the place I would always hang out, was Caribou.
I managed Verizon. That was right next door to it. So
well, we probably knew each other from there. Yeah, because I was
probably did.
When they closed, they were like, should we sell you your table? You're going to be like, do you want to take this? Like, they literally asked me that. So, because I was there all the time.
I have no doubt we saw each other there before 10 years before we actually met each other.
Well, because right, because it was like there was a fireplace there. It was like kind of outdoorsy, and that's like kind of my jam. You know what I mean? Like, I grew up as a kid hunting with my grandpa. You know what I mean? So like that's like it was that whole like outdoorsy kind of indoors thing, or it was like more like log cabin. I'm like, this is cool. I like it. I dig it. You know what I mean? So this is like a vacation. This is where I would want to go vacation to. It's like a log cabin. So,
Caribou Coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
In Portman, Ohio.
Yeah. Now, like you go to Stone Fruit. Stone Fruit feels more like a bar than it does a coffee place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's and that's not saying anything bad about it, but what it's saying is that that's going to naturally attract different people.
Right.
You mean, and like if you don't understand that business owner, that your niche, like you have to write to your niche, you're going to be in trouble. And that comes from psychology, knowing, and having that really honest gut check. Who's my real customer?
Yes.
You mean, because, every business owner wants to say like, hey, I'm going to sell to anybody who has a wallet. But if you try that approach, it's going to be very difficult for you, because not only that, like, we talked about using words that comfort people. If you're not writing to your specific niche, it's going to feel super generic, and it's going to come across as unkind and uncaring. You know what I mean? So like you have to keep that in mind. Like it's so incredibly important to understand your customer and to write to that specific customer, to the point where, we usually play that whole like thing where you like, hey, what's your customer's name? What's their background? Where are they working? Yeah, it's an exercise in futility because it's just make believe. But really what it does is it helps you understand that I'm selling to Deanna. I'm not selling to a woman in, blah, 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 that lives in Florida. You know what I mean? Like, I want to know, like, this is her. You know what I mean? Like, I'm writing to you. So, like, I don't want to write to Chris Askew, a guy who's 40 years old that lives in the sticks. You know what I mean? Like, that's it's you want to write specifically to what that person's going through. Like, are they, what median income are they? Like, because that affects how you talk to people too.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you're saying that. It's almost like I'm going to take this little portion and make it a clip and share it, because I will always teach, when you try to talk to everybody, your message gets watered down, and you said the exact same thing, it becomes generic. So I love that you're sharing that, because it's so important, because people are afraid to narrow down. They think they're leaving money on the table. I get it. But what they're really doing is just making a very generic message. You will still get people outside of that niche. They're still going to purchase your product, but you have to know that voice, that branding voice. So I love that tip, and I'm glad you're sharing that one.
The only thing you're guaranteeing that you're doing is you're guaranteeing that you're going to lose loyal customers when you do that. You know what I mean? Like that's the hard reality. And that's what we coach our clients. Like if you insist on keeping it this generic, this is going to mean you're not going to have loyal customers coming back. And we all know, like, it's so much cheaper to keep, loyal customers than it is to find new ones. Yeah. So why would you ever play with that? You know what I mean? And like, that's not something you want to mess with there. You know what I mean?
Yep. I hear you. What's the next tip?
All right. So the next tip is priming. Priming is super important. So, one thing, like, this is like a tactic that a lot of telemarketers used to use. Thank God everybody has cell phones now, and we all could like ignore numbers that aren't programmed in.
Right.
Like if you're old like me and you remember getting telemarketing calls, one thing that they would always do is they would prime you to say a yes at some point in the conversation. Is it okay if I continue? The entire reason why, and even if you get this at, like, if you're buying a car, this is another thing, car salesmen do this all the time. If you can prime somebody to say yes to one thing, your brain immediately, there's literally strands of things that are connecting parts of your brain that make it easier for you to say yes to other things. Okay. And people get taken advantage of with this in so many different areas.
I bet.
Not just marketing, but like in like dating. You know what I mean? Like, and this is where players can play. You know what I mean? Like if you can get a girl to say yes to one thing, you're going to get her to say yes to another thing. You know what I mean? Like,
single ladies, listen up.
Right? So pay attention. No is no. Keep that knowing you know what I mean? Like, keep it up. So just understand that, though, that is like a psychological principle where, you know, like, it's literally the way your brain is wired, and it's really difficult to fight against it. So the more you're aware of that, you know, foot in the door technique, the more you're aware of that priming, the more you're going to be able to understand when you're being manipulated. Now, the way that you would use this for good is, you know, you want people to say yes to something small. So that's why often a lot of, you know, people like life coaches, this is why they sell smaller packages. Or, hey, if you sign up for my email, I'll give you this free resource, because you're saying yes to that. It's called a tripwire. You know what I mean? Like, it's intentionally something free and cheap that they're trying to give you in order to sell you on something larger later on down the road.
Right.
And this happens all the time. You know what I mean? In like everything, all the time. So yeah, just understand priming. Priming is super important.
Yeah. And that's why a lot of people use, and there's nothing wrong with it, right? But if you are a business and using that and your email technique, right, having that automated welcome email, because you're first getting the freebie, but you're nurturing that relationship and the progress as each email goes out. And the end email, the last one, is you're asking permission, because now you've earned that trust, to pull the trigger and say yes to the bigger item. Yeah. So that's a great example of how to use this particular tip.
So we're going to use this tip in conjunction with another one. The next one is called the anchoring effect. Okay. All right. So the anchoring effect is people rely on the first piece of information that they see when they're faced with a decision. Okay. So if a customer walks into a store, let's say like it's Burlington, all right, what's the quote from Michael Scott? $600 can make you feel like a king at Burlington Coat Factory.
I don't know. Is that what it is?
Yeah, something like that. Like, have you ever watched The Office?
I have no
idea. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's that.
I'm you with it though.
$600, you can feel like a king at Burlington Coat Factory. All right, so if a customer walks into Burlington and they see this jacket is $549, all right, their mind immediately associates that price of that jacket. But then as they're browsing later on, if they see that same jacket with that $349 tag on it, they're going to think they're getting an amazing deal and they're going to purchase it. All right. Because the $549 was the first number that they saw. Yeah. Whereas in Burlington, they never intended to sell you that jacket for $549.
Never.
Never. Not once. You know who does this all the time?
Who? Kohl's,
man. Kohl's is so guilty of this. It's ridiculous. So because they send out all the Kohl's cash and all the Kohl's coupons.
Yeah. I'm a sucker to that too. I'm like, I fall victim to all these.
Yeah. This is the anchoring effect. Like, they have prices in their store that they know that item will sit there and sit there and sit there until they send you Kohl's cash. And then once you get that Kohl's cash in your hand, you're going to go buy those shoes, because you know damn well those shoes are going to be half the price.
And you're excited, and
you're excited about it, and you're going to go back to there, and you're going to sign up for every damn email that they're sending you. You know what I mean? Because you're getting an amazing deal.
Oh my gosh, yeah. DSW gets me too.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's another one that does it too. Shoes, man. So yeah, the anchoring effect. The anchoring effect is such an important. You know, once you understand that, for retail especially, like, oh my God, like there's.
It looks like we lost him. I'm going to hang tight and see if he comes back, but I hope he comes back. Anyhow, these are some great tips. This is kind of funny. I don't know where he went. Here he is. He's back.
Sorry about that.
I just like, right now I'm really wishing I was good at editing, because I'm like,
nice.
Because what you see is what you get.
So somebody at Kohl's was like, nope, you're going off the air. Forget you, buddy. Nice. All right. So one of the books that I'd like to recommend is actually a book called Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow by Daniel Kahneman. Excellent psychology book. It is like deep dive psychology. So like, buckle up, Buttercup. This is like, yeah, it's not like a easy to read book, quote unquote. But what he says in here, and I have a quote: if you can walk into a negotiation and be the first one to say a number or offer a price, you've gained an advantage, because you could always lower that price later. Likewise, if you help the customer on your website to anchor his or her expectations on a certain price, you also gain that powerful advantage. You mean, because, you know, you can always, and we say this like in sales, like you can always go down, but it's much harder to go up.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like if you go up, you have to really like explain that. You know, that's the anchoring effect. It's a natural psychological thing that we can take advantage of.
I'm going to have to check out that book. I have not read it, but I love books like that. So
yeah, super good. If you're ever like, you know, that's a great book to like take on a plane, because then you feel smart. Like everybody's like, what are you reading? You're like,
if they talk to me. Usually I don't talk to people on a plane, but
do you give off that vibe, like leave me alone?
I do give off that vibe, but I will tell you that I flew home
like pull the hood down real low.
I do. I have no desire, but I flew home from Pittsburgh to Florida just a few weeks ago, and I think the guy next to me may have been drunk. He was hysterical and funny. And the airline we flew, it was a quick trip. They did not serve alcohol, and he was very upset about it. But not in a mean way, like in a comical, fun way. And I did talk to him the whole way, but like I said, he may have been drunk, and he was just a lot of fun to talk to.
You're gonna fly on a plane, like if, you know, stuck there for 6 hours. Why not? Right? You know,
right. So. What number are we on?
This is 7. This next one is 7.
Okay. These are good. These are good. I hope everybody's taking notes. I'm going on the replay and writing them all down.
I'll send them to you. Yeah, well, I'll send them to you. That way you have them. All right.
Thank you.
Every decision, the next one is every decision is, now I'll hit you up too with what the exact psychological principle is behind it in the show notes for a little bit of a deep dive, right? So like I'm glossing over and just giving like what the gist of it is, but like the anchoring effect, like that's actually what that is when the first number seen affects customers' value and evaluation price.
I love it.
Like all of these come with like an actual, this has been studied by Psychology Today and all of that stuff. So
very cool. Thank you.
Yeah, every decision is an emotional decision, period. Mm-hmm. People are emotional creatures. You mean, and God bless, I want to say that only 1/3 of sales are done based off of fact alone. The other 66%, it's something like that. That's not like an exact figure, but it was much, much higher where people actually purchase based off of emotion rather than off of need or fact. So, you know, some decision makers, they like to think of themselves as like rational and like, hey, like my emotion isn't affecting my decision, when in reality, it totally, absolutely is. You mean like when you really dive into the psychology behind it, like neuroscience proves this. You mean like we often buy something to fulfill an emotional need. That's why it feels good to go purchase something and buy something new. You mean like it gives you that, it literally gives you a dopamine hit. It literally gives you serotonin, you know, to when you purchase something. So, you know, it's like taking a drug. That's why people get addicted to it. And that's why people go into credit card debt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they're often trying to fill an emotional void that they have with purchases.
Right.
So, you know, it's important to understand that everyone makes their decisions based off of emotion, and that emotions have that plays that huge significant role of what they're doing. So when you're selling something, it's even something big. It could be you're selling somebody a building, okay? Yeah. People are purchasing this not just off of rational decisions. They're purchasing it off of emotional ones. If that wasn't the truth, why do building owners put their name on everything?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like why is Trump Tower, not just the tower or whatever?
Right.
Because okay, granted, that's probably bad because he's other people do it too, though. You know,
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Chris, I read a study that it was with patients who had trauma to the part of the brain that dictates emotion.
Yeah.
And so they had no emotion. And they could not make any decisions as simple as, what do you want to eat? Do you want something to drink? Ooh. Like every decision that we take for granted, they were not able to do on their own because that part of the brain was damaged.
Wow.
So I'm going to argue and say that every single decision we make ties into emotion on some level, you know, of how it makes us feel or exactly what you said, all those reasons. But I think it's deeper than that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think some of it, you know, like, hey, we buy food and water because we're hungry. Like, I don't, you know, is that an emotional decision? Yeah, maybe not. You know what I mean? But, you know, like, I totally, like, I think that number is crazy high. I don't know if it's 100%, you know what I mean? But like, I'll certainly buy off on 90, you know what I mean? Like, it's a crazy huge chunk. So like, talking about purchasing a building, right?
Yeah.
People do these things because it makes them feel good, it makes them look good, or it builds or protects their company's reputation. So much of purchasing is based off of how you feel. Like, this is why lawyers purchase nice cars. Because they want to feel good about themselves, but they also want to convey that reputation that they're damn good at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, this is why they dress the way that they dress. This is why they buy expensive watches, because it makes them feel good, and it makes other people think that they're better than they are.
Well, you know what, Chris, what ties into that is when I first got divorced way back when, 20 some years ago, a little over 20 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, I don't know. I got into real estate, and the first thing I did was buy a new car, because I'm like, nobody's going to trust me that I'm successful if I'm driving an older car. So I bought a new car, still stayed within my budget, right? But it was all, it was perception. I was just starting out.
Yeah.
But there's so much truth to that. And now you have another goal you've got to pay the bill for it.
Yeah.
Like, you got to work your butt off.
But here's what's crazy. And like, I don't understand. This is where, like, oh God, if people just realize what they were doing, okay? The goal is to be rich, not to look rich.
Yes. Well, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why, like, the owner of IKEA, he drives like a 1987 Datsun. Filthy rich man. One of the richest in the world. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then it comes down to, God bless, like, working retail. Like, my wife runs Subway stores. Like, she has several of the restaurants in the area that she does, like, director of operations for. One of the employees, she was talking to them, purchased a new car, and their car payment was over $500 a month because, like, they were a bad driver, they're younger, they got too much of a car that they could afford. And here they are working at a sandwich shop and having to pay $500 a month for a vehicle. You know what I mean? It's like, why is this an important need for you? Like, clearly this is outside of your budget range. You know what I mean? Like you're working now to pay for your car. Who are you
trying to impress?
Exactly. Like, dude, like it's but people don't understand that, like, so many decisions, like, you base these things off of emotion, and some of them carry long-term effects. You mean off of what you purchase and buy, the decisions that you make.
But I will say, in that scenario, I totally get it, right? But I will say, like, in the real estate, I do pay attention, like, to certain things, and whether they are good at it or not. But if I go get my hair done, I'm looking at the woman's hair. If are they successful? Are they not successful in what they do? And so I think in some arenas it makes sense to do that. But I get it. I absolutely. But it's because psychologically, right? My consumer is thinking that I am better at what I do because of the perception I'm creating for them. So I guess it's just using it in a different way, huh?
Yeah, and on the same hand too, like, there's good in it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not all bad and evil, because
no.
You're purchasing nicer clothes and a nicer vehicle to convey that trust, but it also gives you a sense of confidence, which actually does make you better.
Absolutely, right.
You know what I mean? So
win-win.
Right? Yeah, there is positivity to it. That's what I meant earlier when I said earlier on, like, be careful how you use these things, because there's an evil side and there's a good side to it. And that's the way it is in life, period. You know what I mean? Like, yes, it's manipulative, but sometimes it's good to, manipulate some of those things in order to generate better outcomes. Like, you have to make a change somehow. All right.
Right.
So number 8, if you label your customers a certain way, they will act according to that label. Okay. So I'm going to read this off to you. In one study, a group of participants were told that they were much more likely to vote since they have been deemed by the researchers to be more politically active. Now, when it came time to actually go out and vote on the voting date, the group that was told by the researchers, and this is all that they were told, it was complete, like, BS, all right, just a psychological test. The researchers said you were selected for this because you're politically active. That group had a 15% higher turnout rate to vote than the group that was told, that wasn't told that. So,
interesting. Yeah.
So what's funny is, like, because when we're labeled a certain way, our minds naturally are inclined to, like, respond towards that label. We're seeking what's called a cognitive equilibrium. It's what that's kind of called. So if someone is identified as politically active, he or she, like, you're going to subconsciously try to act out that expectation. You mean like, Diana, like, I expect, like, hey, you're fiscally conservative. Like, you're excellent at saving money. Like, now I'm going to expect you, that's my perception of you. Like, you're not going to be blowing money.
Right.
Like, now, even subconsciously, you're going to think next time you purchase something, should I?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, it's honestly, it's one of those subconscious things. And that's why the message here is it's totally okay to tell your customers who they are, what they believe, and how they will act. Your labeling will impact their decisions to buy or not buy your product or service.
I love that. And as you're talking, I have a great example of that. Somebody who just does an amazing job with it. And it's a mutual friend of ours. We just found out it's a mutual friend of ours. But Riel Andrews, he calls everybody champion. What's up, champion? What's up, champion? Right? Hey, these are my champions, right? He calls everyone champion. And I'm like, that's kind of cool. But now that you're sharing this, and he builds his team is a team of champions. And they really are. Yeah. And it makes sense why he does it. Now, whether he realized he was doing that or not, I don't know. But that he does a really good job of that. And that's the first person I thought of as you're explaining this.
It's good. Yeah. And like, I know somebody else on LinkedIn, his name is Edward Zia. He actually, sorry, he actually like calls you. Wow.
You're okay.
My bad, guys. All right. So his name is Edward Zia. But anyhow, like, it kind of blew me away because he was the first time I got a video call on LinkedIn. And his thing was he calls everybody awesome. Same concept. What's up, awesome Chris? What's up, awesome Deanna? And that's like just how he labels everybody because he wants everybody to feel awesome about themselves.
Yeah.
And what you're doing is you're engendering trust in that person that you're talking to by making them feel good about themselves and putting them in a great mood. And that's actually called the emotional contagion effect is what that's called. So that's good. Well, I have a couple other bonus ones here if you're game.
Yeah, heck yeah, bring on the bonus. All
right.
I don't know if you're thinking of what I'm going to start calling people.
Right?
I'm totally implementing this, so just get ready. I'm warning you.
Dude, it's use it as a personal brand. That's what those two do. You know what I mean?
Sassy Chris.
All right, so are you familiar with the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon? Do you know what that is?
No, I don't.
Okay, I guarantee you know what this is. All right, so have you ever heard a word in a movie or a TV show, and then all of a sudden, like a week later, you start hearing that word all the time?
Yes.
Okay, that's the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon. All right, so this is a great subconscious ploy that marketers use literally all the time. This is why in television shows, when you're watching it, they very specifically have a Starbucks cup or whatever. You mean like, yes, Starbucks is sponsoring it, but you know, they'll have it in the background in shots. They'll have people holding in the background shots, and it's not ever like pointed out.
Right.
But what they're banking on is the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon, where the more that you see something, the more that you have the familiarity with it, because like what literally happens in your brain is you're familiar with something, but because you've recently seen it, those activators that are inside your memory, they're recent. And because your neurons have fired recently, it makes the next neuron pathway quicker to reach. Okay. So that's why you notice it like the second time where you're like, oh, this person. Yeah. And it's all based off of how your neurons literally fire. Because that neuron was charged, the pathway is easier for the next neuron charge to go through. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Like so I talk about the reticular activating system a lot.
Yeah.
So are you familiar with that?
Mm-mm.
What that is? So the reticular activating system is part of our brain that it finds when our brain will believe whatever we tell it.
Yeah.
So if we set a goal or we can visualize something, our brain will find a pathway to it, right? Which is why vision boards are so popular, not because they're magic or make things happen. It's because we visually see something and our brain will find the opportunities along the way to make it happen. If we go and we're car shopping, I use this example a lot. For car shopping and we put a lot of energy into that, now every car, if we wanted a black Mercedes, every car we see on the road is a black Mercedes now all of a sudden. So I cannot wait to do some nerdy research to figure out how these two things work together, because I totally see that there's probably some sort of a connection between those parts of our brain.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I'm so pumped right now. Like, all the nerds out there, celebrate with me. Like, this is good. Right.
So the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon, it actually also works with confirmation bias. So because the second time you see something, all right, now you're saying, your brain literally says, I'm seeing this everywhere.
Yeah.
You mean, like, it's that subconscious where those two those two psychological principles really do play off of each other.
Wow.
So yeah. And that's why, like, exactly what you said, like, your brain will believe everything you tell it to.
Yeah.
This is 100% why I think giving people the advice of follow your heart is some of the worst advice you could possibly ever give somebody. I'm not joking. Like, I think, like, it's terrible advice because, like, I don't want to, like, I'm going to switch gears here. Like,
go ahead. You're good.
Hey, if you're into what the word of God says, the Bible says the heart is deceitful above all things. And that follows psychological principles. All right. Because you can start to think a certain way. Oh, I'm unhappy in my marriage, so I should leave my husband. And you start to buy that. Right. When what really happens is, what really should be happening is, hey, you're unhappy. You should probably work on yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But that's not going to come without a psychologist telling you, hey, listen, like, you're being affected by this confirmation bias of your own thoughts.
Yeah.
That's spinning you in the wrong direction. And that, it might not be related to somebody's marriage. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But there's so many different business decisions that you're making. You know what I mean? So, you know, and you don't start to understand that until you've taken psychology and you realize, like, yes, like, you can literally, that's why the same confirmation bias is why we have so many conspiracy theorist people in the right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they've bought into this and their brain has told them this. And then other people that they see online are giving them confirmation bias on this. Mm-hmm. But them following their heart and saying, hey, this election was fraud, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's where it becomes dangerous. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, playing off of that.
I do. I think, yes, I do. I think there's a lot of different things where whatever approach, like, there's so many things going through my mind right now, but there's so many ways that you can be, right? Good and bad, where you're getting that confirmation over and over and over again, whether it's right or whether it's wrong, you don't know. You just see the confirmation happening.
And a good way to do that, the good side of this, is your kids. You mean, like, every kid needs to know that somebody's in their corner no matter what, and they're the most celebrated person on earth.
Yeah.
You mean, so, like, one thing that I do with my children is, like, I have 3 boys, and I intentionally take them out every other Saturday, just one of them by themselves, and we go out on a daddy day where we do, like, an adventure, we go out to dinner, we go out to lunch, something.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's to build up that confirmation bias that I am always in their corner.
Yeah.
You know, no matter what. You know what I mean? So there's good parts about that, you know, building up that confirmation bias too. You know what I mean? Like,
definitely.
It's not every psychological tactic that's out there can be used for the power of good or evil. It just depends on where you're going to land with that as a human
Very
being.
true.
So
very true. So great place to stop. But I've got one question for you.
Shoot. What's up?
Okay. So we are both in, obviously, the digital world. And so I'm curious, what is the most ridiculous thing that a client has expected from you or you've ever gotten from them? I know just recently I reached out to you and shared something really funny and we laughed about it for a little bit. But now I'm asking you, what has a client expected from you?
I've literally gotten a client, like, when you're doing work on somebody's logo, like, you know, hey, you don't want to have to reinvent that, but sometimes you have to. Because sometimes you literally get sent a logo that was designed in Excel.
I've never heard of Excel, but
I said Excel.
How do you design a logo in Excel, though?
I was like, what the heck? Like, the squares.
That would be a challenge. That's almost like a competition.
They used each of the squares to paint in colors and then zoomed out.
Stop it.
Yes, like it was pixels. And I was like, oh my God, I can't. Like, we're not doing it. Yes.
I don't even know. the time and energy it would take to do that.
Yes. Yeah. What's crazy is if you go on YouTube, there is some amazing stuff that I found because of this client, because I was like, who does logos in Excel? And then I was like, well, there's actually some kind of cool stuff you could do in there, but that's like for like artistic people, you know what I'm saying? Like it's different,
not for logo design.
Like Excel, I've gotten logos sent to me in Microsoft Paint, PowerPoint, you know what I mean? Like
PowerPoint, I got PowerPoint, somebody, a graphic designer, someone who said they went to school for graphic design. Yeah. And this was many, many years ago. So I'm confident that they're probably not listening to this right now. Sent over a logo in PowerPoint. I'm like, okay, do you have like any of the other files available? Yeah, right. Like, no, why would I need other files? Like, that's it.
Yeah, you can export it as a PNG. I'm
like, okay, right? Like I'm not a graphic designer, but
like I think one of my biggest points of frustration, and this is like not against, like I don't get mad at the client if they have this. You mean this is like against the greater design community. When you get somebody's logo sent to you as a PNG, and it literally has like the squares of the transparent background in the background because it's not actually transparent. It's not a real PNG. You know what I mean? Like
yes.
Yeah, it's clipped, but it's not transparent.
Yeah.
That makes me mad. So those
that only happened once to me. And I was like, wait, but I couldn't blame the person sending it because it was not a designer and they probably just sent what they had. And, you know, so I have a little bit of grace with people like that because it's not their fault. You know, they didn't know, but
I've fired a client before.
Did you?
Yeah, because this was early on, and it was like, I hate to say this was for a church client too, and like I fired them because like it wasn't very much like it wasn't. Oh God, this is gonna sound so awful.
You were just preaching the Bible a little bit ago.
I know, right, dude? So like I was trying to help them out, and I gave them a good price break, but the guy like would not decide on a logo. And like we went through literally something like 60, 70 versions. And I was like, listen, like this is probably not going to work. Like I'm obviously not able to give you what you're looking for. And he kept giving me the I'll know it when I see it, blah, blah, blah. Then like he turned over after like I was like, okay, like maybe you should find somebody else. And like some kid did it like in the youth group and like it sucked, blah, blah, blah. But you know, it was just one of those things where it was like I couldn't spend the amount of time on it anymore. It's like I wasn't trying to disrespect him, but I was just like, listen, like I have to move on. I have other clients that I need to work with. You know what I mean? And that was probably the hardest thing, like, you know, firing a client. So
yeah, it definitely is. But to piggyback on that, what I've learned, and this is probably a whole other conversation and podcast, is that when I've tried to help people out and have really discounted something for whatever reason, whether it's a church or a friend or somebody I know, or, you know, you're just trying to be kind, they're the biggest pain in the asses that I've ever worked with. They want it more. It's never good enough. More. And it's like, they don't really, and I just posted about this today, ironically, but it's like, they don't appreciate your value, but when you discounted it, you told them you didn't have as much value as you do.
Well, we just got our floors done, like scrubbed, like carpet cleaned, from like my buddy, he started up his own carpet cleaning company, steamworks.com.
A little shout out.
I mean, it might actually not be steamworks.com. I'm sorry. Like I might be getting the domain wrong. Crap. Joel,
as it goes flashing across the screen.
Right. Anyway, you know, like he came and he did an amazing job, and like I didn't ask for a discount. I was going to pay him full price, and because I didn't ask for one, he gave me an incredible deal. You know what I mean? And he's like, listen, like you didn't expect it. Like we're like really close friends too.
Yeah.
You mean, but I wouldn't dream of calling up a close friend of mine and saying, you're not worth as much as you think you are.
Right.
Like that blows my mind when people have that expectation. Yeah. Blows my mind.
Me too.
Because it's like, I find that so disrespectful to how the other people have to raise and like earn money for their families.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this is literally his livelihood. Yeah. I'm going to pay him full price. You know what I mean? So
right. I'm with you on that. So don't ask for discounts from your friends and family.
Right? And hint, when you don't ask for them, you might actually get one.
You might.
Yeah, right.
Chris, thank you so much for coming on. I loved everything you had to say. This was really good. This was good information.
Awesome. And then, yeah, like I'll hit you up with all the notes. That way you don't have to go do the research. I already did it for you. What's that?
I always hit that button on my desk. It goes up and down. Thank you. Nice. And if you're listening and you want to reach out to Chris, if for whatever reason you want to work with him, you love his personality, you want to talk more about ways to improve your marketing strategy, if you are watching this on YouTube, you can check the notes. They're there. If you're on Apple Podcast, you can click over to my website. Everything, all the ways to reach him, all the social media links are in the notes. So you can absolutely work with Chris because he's pretty flippin' awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. But thank you so much for coming on. And I'll have to have you on again. So we could.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. There's so many too. Like girl, if you want to go into, not just marketing, but also like when you're actually doing the sales.
Yeah.
I have 17 psychological tricks to make people like you and buy from you. So we can totally do a part 2 on this also.
You know what? I think we're going to have to, Sassy Chris. Yeah, I really, right? I think stay tuned. Part 2 is coming.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.